Good morning, and thanks for joining us once again. It's that segment where we bring you the stories that are making the front pages of the national newspapers this morning. And as usual, we would begin with the Daily Trust. And it is firewalls this morning from Kaduna, where Erufai is saying that Kaduna State is now safer after military bombardment. Military doing what we have been yearning for, he says. Says arming Amotekun, other local security outfit, not the solution. Apparently, responding to Governor Akeredelu's call for government approvals for Amotekun to carry AK-47. Oton gives federal government 1 month deadline to approve AK-47 license. Interesting times ahead. And with other stories there, we have pictorials of the situation in Abaji to Koton Karfe as captured by Abubakar Isa. You have vehicles completely in a log jam as a result of the several days that they have been trapped around Lokoja, owing to the surge in the water bodies that has cut off traffic between Lokoja and other parts of the country. And right there below the name marks, we have federal government malls return to old charges as appeal court discharges Kanu. You'll find the details of that on page 5. Beavers will be a game changer in 2023 election, and this is according to the former electoral umpire, Professor Jega. You want the details of that? Please open up to page 36. And Dangote's 650,000 refinery, it's 97% completed. This is according to the federal government agency, and I'm sure most Nigerians are breathing a sign of relief. If you live in Abuja, you would understand what hell it has become in the last couple of days, owing to the situation in Lokoja, and the situation has in fact escalated to other parts of northern Nigeria, where, for instance, I have been buying fuel at 350 naira per liter. I don't know how much you get. you get yours. And to other stories on the front pages: infant mortality rates high in Oyo, Ogun, Ekiti. Nigerian Bureau of Statistics and the UNICEF disclose. Buhari approves 12,000 metric tons of grains for flood victims. And police rescue 67-year-old man locked up for 20 years in Kaduna. Wow. Interesting. These are the major stories on the front page of the Daily Trust newspaper.
Okay, let's take a look at some other stories on the Nation newspaper this morning. Right at the top, ASU in all-night meeting over strike, and now we're hearing now that they've called off that 8-month-long strike conditionally. You'd also see other stories. South commissions Okowa Diri to pacify Wike. Sanwo-Olu signs MOU with Del York on Film City. And on page 2, you see the story about court acquits ex-governor Turaki of 8.3 billion naira fraud. You see MPC backs local tech firms to power 2023 census. Unilag tops Versities. And then you see a pictorial there with a large crowd of all Progressive Congress supporters at a solidarity march for Tinubu Shatima in Osun State yesterday. On page 3 on the Nation newspaper, you see the story about 2023. It's reward time for Tinubu, says Kwara Governor, Senator. And you see the story about appeal court ends Nnamdi Kanu's trial. Others, IPOB leaders release. And then also you see the story about Amotekun Ko. Others can't tackle banditry, says Erufai. It's simplistic way of fighting bandits. Autumn. People have final say on kitting outfits with AK-47. And then you'd find other stories as well. LPS presidential campaign begins October 18th in Nasarawa. Bako remains APC member. These are some of the major stories on the Nation.
We move on to the Punch newspaper, and it's staying with a story from the appeal court. Nnamdi Kanu, jubilation in Southeast. FG may appeal judgment. We have other riders there. Court says IPOP leader adoption unlawful. Slam executive for recklessness. Ohaneze, Showore, Southeast elders Elder statement. Kanu followers hail judgment. We will present judgment copy to DSS for Kanu to go home, says Ozokome. And other stories there, you have 126 stranded Nigerians returned from Libya. It appears that this number from Libya is never ending, despite the situation in that country. And there you have pictorials of the returnees, and they're highlighting from the aircraft. To other stories, World Bank, IMF to assess Nigeria's debt sustainability. PDP woes aggrieved party members. BOT delays report. Strike. Parents, students hopeful as ASU leaders meet. Apparently, we now have an update on this story, as we now have a conditional call-off, whatever that means. Sanwo-Olu gets federal government approval for $2.5 billion Badagry Seaport. And to other stories there, MTN to provide 365,000 smartphones through financing scheme. And cholera kills 231. NCDC warns against poor hygiene. To other stories on the front page, Lagos probe nurses for filming ex-BB Niger stars last moment. That's terrible what the country is becoming. At a critical time like that, we are more interested in trending those kind of stories than providing the empathy that are needed. Ogun man kills wife over school fees, burns corpse with iron. Wow. Osinachi thought her abusive husband would change. This is according to neighbor. Osinachi is the popular gospel musician, that died of complications allegedly caused by several cases of domestic violence. These are the major stories on the front page of the Punch newspaper.
Very interesting stories, I must say. Now let's take a look at some more on the Blueprint newspaper this morning. The Blueprint leads with a story about treasonable felony trial. Court frees Kanu, says arrest, trial, executive recklessness. And the riders there, you'd see government violated local international laws on Kanu's extradition. Federal government to explore available options, that's according to the OAGF. And that story is on page 6. And then you'd find other stories still on page 6. Federal government may have surrendered in fight against insecurity. This is according to the Kaduna State Governor, El-Rufai. Says KDSG's request for refund from government not forthcoming. Advocates state police wants NNPC sold out if country must survive. Now that's interesting. You'd find other stories as well on the Blueprint newspaper on page 5. 2 killed, 18 rescued in Katsina terror attack. Remit to your contributions. Buhari tells Gulf of Guinea member states completes tenure as commission's chair. And on page 7, you'd find the very interesting story about man locked up for 20 years. Police arrest 5 suspects, trial principal suspects. And you see a very disturbing pictorial there on the Blueprint newspaper that shows you flood taking over Swali Market in Yenagoa, Bayelsa State on Thursday. And then you'd also see some children offloading a ram and other items from boats after arriving at Natako Junction from Kotonkarfi as a result of heavy downpour overflowing rivers Niger and Benue in Kogi State. And you still find other very interesting stories. 2023, I've accepted Atiku, but I insist Ayu must resign. This is according to Wike. PENCOM commences online verification of 2023 retirees. Man arrested for beating wife to death in Ogun. Flood. Diri approves 450 million for relocation relief items for displaced persons. And then you'd find other stories on page 23. Money supply to economy hits 49.3 trillion naira. Embarrassed Shell launches probe into crew theft from facilities. These are the major stories on the Blueprint newspaper this morning.
We move on now to This Nigeria, one of the latest addition to the print family, and we have there staying with the Nnamdi Kanu's release, the major headline here reads, "Not guilty, not free." Despite Court of Appeal ruling on Kanu, AGF Malami says FJ will consider pre-rendition options. Acquittal too complex for human understanding, Ozokome. We have other stories there. We will apply antiviral treatment for monkeypox high-risk patients, and this is according to the NCDC. 2023, INEC dismisses alleged plot to dump beavers. APC knocks Ngige for not endorsing Tinubu during a TV interview, as 5,000 members to quit party in Imo over alleged negligence. 3 dead, resident displaced as flood submerged Bayelsa community. And we have other story right there by the nameplate. 12 banks pay 62.4 billion naira to NDIC as deposit insurance premium in the first half of 2022. These are the major stories on the front page of this Nigeria.
Okay, let's take a look at one more paper talking about the Nigeria News Direct before we review some of the stories making headway this morning. I've accepted Atiku Okowa, but Ayu must go. Wike insists. Boycotts party campaign in Kaduna, says accepting Ayu to resign after election is foolish. And you find other stories. My second term bid will be successful with or without you. Governor Abiodun fires back at Amosun. You find other very interesting stories here as well. Jubilation in Southeast as appeal court acquits Kanu, faults federal government of executive recklessness. You see the story also about MTN Nigeria to boost 5G adoption with smartphone financing. And then, as usual, you see Femi Adesina's column on the Nigeria News Direct. These are the major stories.
We will now take a short breather. When we return, our in-house analyst would be ready to serve you the details making the front pages this morning. Please stay with us. Welcome back. I said earlier that we're bringing you an in-house analyst. It's not exactly in-house, and he's in-house. However you choose to interpret that. He's always seen as one of us. We made him an offer to be an extra presenter. He said, he said no. We have in the studio this morning the editor, 21st Century Chronicle, Nuruddin Abdallah. It's a pleasure to have you in the studio again.
My pleasure.
Accept my sympathy for falling prey to those who chose to come for your beautiful phones. I know how terrible it is to lose your phone at a time like this, especially as you are completely wired to the different devices that you have on your phone. It's about the best companion anybody can have now, other than your wife and children. Yeah. We hope that whoever it is that took it, that the Almighty will replace whatever you have lost with that phone. Looking at the papers this morning, a number of varying offerings. The Daily Trust is staying with the comments of the man who likes to describe himself as the rabble-rouser. and yesterday, on a positive note, he acknowledged that Kaduna is now safer after military bombardment. And the military and perhaps that is what they have been yearning for a long time. But goes on to say that Amina Motakun, another local security outfit, may not be the solution. While Zotom is also giving the federal government 1 month. I don't know what will happen if the 1 month lapse and the federal government does not yield to his demand, however, to approve AK-47 licenses for the local vigilante. What do you make of the RFI's comments yesterday?
Yeah, like he rightly said, there is serious improvement in security situation, particularly in the Kaduna general area. And there are so many factors for that. You know, maybe on the flip side, the trend has stopped moving for 6 months. So, and there is no commercial flight to Kaduna. You remember a Saturday before the Monday train attack, there was equally an attempted attack by bandits on a commercial craft about to taxiing about take up. You remember, and bandits just appeared on the runway, dangling AK-47 on the field. So NCA shut down the airport. All the commercial airlines, boycotted the Kaduna International Airport. So for all those who have to go to Kaduna, and not only that, the crisis, the Jet 1 foil crisis, has almost affected. I remember if you are going to Kano from Abuja, God helps you if you are going to secure a ticket, and God helps you if you are going to even meet up. So people spend a day or two waiting for a craft to fly them to Abuja to the Kano axis. So only alternative is the Abuja, Kaduna, Zaria, Kano road. Yes. If you can fly to Kano by plane, but if you are going to Kaduna, it has to be by road. So that is why the Abuja, the 160 stretch road from Abuja to Kaduna has been regimented, so to say. You follow that, or you know what I'm saying? You can't pass, and regimented not only by maybe a number of security forces stationed, no. The number of security forces that pass, that serve as guards for VIPs, their family members, and whatever. You see one SUV with 2 truckloads of, that is a private person or a family member of one of the generals or one of the big tops.
Are you insinuating that may have been commercialized, for instance, to...
No, I don't want to say that, but you don't need to be a military man to get those. My uncle do have, I know. So that is one. So the road has been militarized, not necessarily by security forces stationed, more but security forces providing protective details.
Okay.
To the Hajias, to the madams, their family members who have anything to do. And again, the Chief of Defense Staff, General Irabo, is actually doing well. Particularly, there was what we have been advocating, that generals don't need to stay. It's not a boardroom war now. They should lead by example. The general in Kaduna, I think he was newly posted there a couple of months ago. He did that. We saw him live going to the forest of the hitherto abandoned forest of Birnungwari, leading men and officers, arresting, bombarding, clearing bandits. So it's encouraging. And I spoke to some of the people there. It's encouraging, the guy is here. He's a general, and he is leading the troops. He is not sitting in his air-conditioned office in Kaduna, sipping coffee or tea, receiving salutes, watching CNN and whatever. No.
Okay.
So, all these things, have helped seriously. And in Kaduna, again, there are some special forces, actually, we are stationed there. Since because we have, that of technology. So we need men, boots on ground. And, they have equally, all these things helped in de-escalating conflict inflicted by bandits. So the Kaduna governor actually is right that yes, I mean, like I said, there's so many, maybe by when the trend returns, the security maybe the big guys will not be following the road. We hope that the security will sustain the tempo, even though if the trend resumes and all the VIPs, their family members, return to the trend.
I like the way you pointed Z when you're talking about VIP. I'm sure whatever is applied to her, we will get the crumbs when they fall from the table. But I would like you to quickly, before Z comes in with the next question, to react to the statement he made about not Amon and Muteko. How do you advance that kind of statement if you accede to a local security group? How are they going to confront the armed bandits or faceless group, as the case may be, if they are not armed? It just further emboldens the people who are terrorizing the community. You don't think so?
Yes, but we have to be extremely cautious. People cite the instances of the United States, UK, where you can go to a gun shop and buy a gun like a candy and what have you. Look at the communal situation here, Mr. Sunday. People who have rise to certain level as security officials, as top bureaucrats, by the time they retire and return to their communities, they become communal warriors, triggering communal conflicts and what have you. What if we do have arms now? In the case of Amotokun, I don't know the name of the one by the governor, the protector of the Benue Valley. The issue is this. It's just like the case of the state police. Why is Autumn concerned about forming a security outfit, going helter-skelter to arm them, less than 7 months to the general elections, that he knows that his popularity has nosedived? Reverend Father Elias has almost taken over the state politically. So these are the situations. If, for instance, let's say Autumn will be responsible enough, he will not use his local security outfit with assault rifles to decimate political opponent, real and imagined. What guarantee is he given that after he leaves in the next 8 months, the guy that will pick up from where he stopped will not use it to pursue? Look at the situation. State governors are using federal police to harass, intimidate opponents. You understand? No. So this are the situation. Kaduna has a vigilante, Zampara, but they shouldn't be using assault rifles. You understand? They don't use AK-47.
No, they don't.
Interesting.
So that's the situation. I align myself with what the governor said in that regard.
Okay, well, we'll see how that pans out. Now, another very interesting, issue that is all over the news is this issue of flooding. We've seen the lockdown, along Kogi, Abuja Road, and stopping movement and all of that. And we're also seeing that President Buhari has approved 12,000 metric tons of grains for flood victims. Is that what we really need, or do we need to halt this once and for all?
This is our usual fire brigade approach to issues. Flood don't just happen that way. We have NIMET that do all the predictions. But because, maybe we are still living in 7th century, we don't even listen to them or agree with what they say. Lokoja, Confluence State, right? We know. Okay. This is not the first time that flood, maybe on that magnitude, that 2012 was being worse than this. If you look at the mortality, if you look at the fatalities, and what have you. But maybe the dramatization of the flood this time around, particularly in the capital city, it simply means the failure of the governors That is it. You plan. Municipality plan has been abandoned. If you look at it, there are certain state capitals. Let me speak of those in the north that I'm familiar with. If there is an emergency, you can't be evacuated. When I am coming to this building, there is what they call the muster point. In case of any emergency, all the occupants of this property will move to that place. There are no such places in most of the capital cities across the north. This I can say. Go to my state. Every available corner plot has been taken over. Every available canal, drainage, open space has been taken over and built upon. The same thing with Lokoja. If you have planned for this, natural disasters do occur, but they come with minimal damages. We don't have hurricane. You'll see a hurricane with so much magnitude. In fact, only 2 people died, or with even 0 fatality, because people plan. They do evacuate. But look at it now. Almost all the states have been flooded. Simply means that land administration has been bastardized and politicized. Go to Kano, for instance. Every available space in the 8 metropolitan local governments have been taken over by the people in power and taken and given out to all manner of business people, building. Look at what happened in Contemporary. It was a canal. But thank God the governor has to reverse himself, bulldoze those on. It's the same thing with Lokoja. It's the same thing with Lokoja. It's simply we don't plan. If you know that this area is prone to flood, you make provisions. Don't interfere with the waterways. With the overpopulation of our urban cities now, it seems that you should even create more canals. When the rain comes, there should be aperture for where it will fit. But that is not happening. Some state capitals, have been even taken over by refuse.
We're talking about this the situation in Lokoja especially, and we saw not just with Lokoja, in other places where the metropolis are not exactly very built up. I mean, we saw the devastation in Taraba, where hundreds of thousands of hectares of farmlands were overtaken. And this situation is worsened by the Lado dam water opening. It appears that what we really need to do is not as simplistic as just the canal. The building of the dams, the dredging of the Niger, that it appears we have not done a couple of years. This within the realms of the federal government. Why are we not thinking long term every time we find ourselves in this kind of mess?
Mr. Sunday, Lagdo Dam, or whatever they call it, has been the excuse by both the federal and some state officials. Don't Nigeria have a diplomatic relationship with Cameroon?
They do.
But even if they do, are you saying the Cameroon will continue to retain that body of water?
But there are ways of minimizing it.
Okay.
They say that the simplistic pedestrian excuse they give us is that they release the water outdoors. It is not done that way. Just last 2 weeks, I think, I saw a statement by the Cameroonian authorities, water authorities, saying that all these accusations and what if it is baseless. When Lagdo Dam was being built, Nigeria was invited to be involved. They refused. You refuse to commit a dime. Do you know why? Because we don't have the foresight. Look at the war, soft war, taking place between Egypt, Eritrea, Sudan, and Ethiopia.
Over the canal.
Yes. You remember. It's a real, I know a water professor I met in Egypt. His father was a water professor. This same guy now, Professor Sharaki, is a Boston-trained professor of water. So, in their family, water, how Nile is to Egypt's survival.
Right.
So, on Facebook, it's his business now. Attacking Ethiopia, all these meetings. Why? Because Egypt, who is at the lower end of the Nile, will not sit down for the people in Ethiopia to build that Renaissance dam to cut them up. Oh no, they will do the lagdo to be given the lagdo treatment. When the thing is full, they'll just release it to sweep
everywhere.
So because, that's what there is a lot of politicking. And that's why even the Renaissance dam, the completion period is dragging. It's an international issue. But you keep quiet. It's Cameroon. The last time I know, Nigerian water, was it Sarah Chekpe?
Sarah Chekpe.
It was a minister of
Yes.
power. I remember there was a time she took Nigerian delegation to the Cameroon to look over these things. We should have a stake. We should be able to talk. But no, you just look at the, whatever you're thinking that all things will be normal. So this is the situation. Okay, you want them, when the water reaches a certain level, to allow it so that it will destroy the dam? No. And the water has a way. Top, down. And if you are unfortunate to be geographically at the lower, you understand? So you have to devise ways, do more canals, evacuate refuse, and what have you, so that Lokoja will not be locked down. And again, do you know even the funniest part when I saw these pictures? The NLPC officials are talking. So it means that, God forbid, if something happened along the Lokoja, there are mighty bridges. So you mean that the entire country will be cut up?
Okay.
So we're not thinking that way?
Okay, now we are already running out of time, and would like you to just comment on freeing of Nnamdi Kanu yesterday. And a lot of people have been criticizing the courts, criticizing the federal government. Why should they do that? What would be your comment about
It's simple. We are in a democracy. Rule of law is key. Democracy without rule of law is nothing. The federal government is unfortunate to say that they haven't done their homework properly. They speak on the pages of newspapers. They label people, the moment they see a mic, or when they start talking, making all manner of accusations that they cannot substantiate before the court of law. It is not what you say, Nnamdi Kanu. You have to prove beyond reasonable doubt before the learned judges. So it simply means the Federal Minister of Justice didn't do their homework. For if you read what the judges said yesterday, I said some snippets, using all manner of ways to. Yes, we did one Gestapo, or what I can call it, Jack Bauer's operation in an East African country to bring him. So when we brought him, and they have another time, we didn't even prepare well. The 15 count charge, I think, is the third one. The amendment. So it means that the lawyers at the Ministry of Justice, maybe they should better sit up.
Interesting. Very quickly before we go, we would like you to look at one of the stories that made the headline, which is the 67-year-old man that was more or less incarcerated for 20 years by some suspect. How do you keep a full-grown man? Apparently, they took him in at 47. And somehow managed to keep him out of the limelight for 20 years. How is that possible in our society?
I look at it from the sociological point of view, Mr. Sunday. This is not the first time we're having situations like this. In Kano, I remember, we saw a woman who has, I think, the girl from look at it, she's autistic, She has this special.
Yeah. Yes.
But she can't unleash her into the street. So she was tired like a goat. And she was so poor because it was just one hotline in Kano. And when even officials, social welfare officers came, she was insulting them.
Because she has become used to that.
No, the woman.
Oh, okay.
Saying that, okay, do you ever care? So the truth is this, there are so many families, because of illiteracy and because of poverty, they don't have. This guy apparently has a mental situations, you understand? But they can't afford the psychiatrist. They can't keep it in psychiatry. And they don't want him roaming the street like a madman. So people resort to this. Before the disbandment of these quasi-mental centers, in Kaduna we know what they call, there was one man in Regasa. people who are mentally unstable because of drugs or what have you, are being taken care of. Even though the guy is not a psychiatrist, he's using some quasi-religious, whatever. But people are safe that this guy is keeping their wards, their family members there. They are not roaming the street as madmen. So the state government, the local government should look into this. This is very rampant in most of, it's maybe 57, but this is Kaduna. Only God knows. They are treated like animals because their family are too ashamed to allow their loved one to be roaming the street as a madman. And they can't afford the psychiatry or any rehab because of poverty and whatever. So they better keep it
from the public view.
Exactly, from the public view. This is very common, particularly in this part of the country. Wow. So I hope the authorities concerned should look into mental health is key.
Absolutely.
But because of poverty, illiteracy, people resort to something like this.
Unfortunately. That is the much that time would allow permit us to look at this morning as far as the stories that make the front pages are concerned. Thank you very much, Nuruddin Abdullah.
My pleasure.
Editor, 21st Century Chronicle, who is always here every other Friday to bring us deep and insightful analysis of the issues that make the front pages. We hope you have a delightful Friday.
Thank you.
One free of robbery.
The Buddha goes to my time. I'm appealing to him to return my phone.
Thank you. We would take a short break and return at the top of the hour where we hope to serve you more from today's show. Please stay with us.
But in a situation where you find that look at the same,
not necessarily tribal or regional.
I have said that